Dad, this year we're celebrating Thanksgiving just as a family. You're not invited. That's how the betrayal began, which I definitely didn't deserve. And when his wife added that I hadn't earned a place at their table yet, I replied with just one thing: I'll cancel all automatic payments. An hour later, 95 missed calls, and then something happened that turned everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The message arrived at 3:47 on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 days before Thanksgiving. I was reviewing a client portfolio when my phone buzzed against the mahogany desk. I glanced down, expecting a confirmation about Thursday's dinner plans. Maybe Leo asking what time I'd arrive or what I wanted to bring. Instead, I read, Dad, this year we're celebrating Thanksgiving with immediate family only. You're not invited. I stared at the screen. Read it again. The words didn't rearrange themselves into something that made sense. My reading glasses slipped down my nose as I leaned closer, as if proximity would somehow alter the meaning. Immediate family only. I was his father. How much more immediate could I get? Before I could process it, another message dropped into the family chat. Bernice's name appeared with that little typing indicator. Then her words materialized like a slap. Maybe someday you'll earn the right to sit at a table with us. Do it. Not yet. My chest tightened. I set the phone down carefully, the way you'd set down something fragile that might shatter if handled roughly. Except I wasn't the fragile one here. I was the one who'd been holding everything together for 8 years since my wife died and left me drowning in guilt, trying to prove to my son that I could still be the father he deserved, even though his mother was gone. I picked up the phone again, scrolled up through the chat history, found the thread from 3 months ago where Leo had asked if I could cover the mortgage for just a few months while he transitioned to a new position. Found Bernice's message from last spring about the private school tuition, how it was an investment in their children's future, and wasn't I invested in my grandchildren's future? Found my own responses, each one a variation of course, and already sent, and anything you need. My fingers moved almost independently, opening my banking app. I navigated to the recurring payments section and just looked at the list. Really looked at it, maybe for the first time since I'd set everything up on autopilot. Mortgage payment, car leased for Leo, car lease for Bernice, private school tuition for both kids, their homeowner's insurance, their utilities, their premium cable package, Bernice's credit card autopay, because she'd convinced me that her business expenses were really investments in Leo's future networking opportunities. I muttered the total to myself, letting each word hang in the empty office. $8,550 every single month. Outside my office, footsteps approached. Martin from the adjacent suite paused in my doorway, already wearing his coat. His voice was cheerful, oblivious. Do it. You heading out soon? Happy Thanksgiving? I looked up, assembled my professional mask. You too, Martin. Drive safe. He waved and disappeared down the corridor. I heard the elevator chime. Then silence settled back over the floor. Most of the building had already emptied out for the long weekend. I was alone with my phone, my computer screen, and a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. I read Bernice's message one more time. Maybe someday you'll earn the right. As if I hadn't earned anything. As if $8,000 a month was just expected, just assumed, just the price I paid for the privilege of occasionally seeing my grandchildren at whatever events Bernice deemed appropriate for my attendance. The screen blurred slightly. I removed my glasses, set them beside the keyboard. Without them, the numbers on my banking app became soft and indistinct, but I didn't need perfect vision to understand what I was looking at. I'd been staring at this reality for years without actually seeing it. I thought about calling Leo directly, demanding an explanation, asking what I'd done to deserve this dismissal. But I already knew the answer. Nothing. I'd done nothing except make myself indispensable and invisible at the same time. I was a checking account with a heartbeat, valuable only for what I could provide, and easily discarded the moment I expected something as unreasonable as a seat at the Thanksgiving table. My thumb hovered over the banking app. The office was very quiet. Through the window, I could see the sun starting its descent toward the McDowell Mountains, painting the Scottsdale sky in shades of copper and amber. Beautiful, indifferent. The city would keep moving whether I spent tomorrow alone or surrounded by family who tolerated me from my wallet. I pulled up the family chat one more time, read both messages again, then slowly scrolled through the payment list on my banking app. Each entry represented a choice I'd made. Compensation for not being there enough when their mother was sick, for working too many hours when Leo was young, for every perceived failure that I tried to remedy with money. Because money was something I understood, something I could control. I stared at that list until the numbers burned into my vision. My voice came out quieter than I expected, absorbed immediately by the leather chair and empty walls. You want immediate family only. Let's see how immediate your bills feel. My thumbs moved across the phone screen with a steadiness that surprised me. The message I typed into the family chat was brief, stripped of anything that might suggest negotiation was on the table. Thanks for letting me know. Canceling all automatic payments today. Have a nice holiday. I read it twice. Changed nothing. Hit send. The little check marks appeared, confirming delivery. I watched them turn blue. Read receipts. Both Leo and Bernice had seen it. I didn't wait for a response. The exit group option appeared when I held down on the chat name, and I tapped it without hesitation. A small confirmation dialog asked if I was sure. I selected yes. The chat disappeared from my screen. I opened my laptop alongside the phone, positioning both devices so I could work across platforms. My banking app on mobile, institution websites on the larger screen. I'd set up these payments methodically over the years. It seemed appropriate to dismantle them the same way. First, the mortgage, $3,200, scheduled to withdraw on the 1st of every month. I navigated to my primary bank's website, logged in, found the recurring payments section. The entry sat there with its neat little active status in green. My cursor hovered over cancel scheduled payment for perhaps 3 seconds. Then I clicked. A confirmation dialog appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment? The recipient will not be notified automatically. I clicked confirm. The status changed from green to gray. Cancelled. I muttered to the empty office. $3,200. Not anymore. Next came the car leases. Leo's first, a luxury sedan he'd insisted was necessary for client meetings, even though his sales position had him working mostly from home. $489 monthly. Cancelled. Then Bernice's SUV, the one she justified by claiming she needed safe, reliable transportation for the grandchildren. $512. Cancelled. As I clicked through each one, I spoke quietly, echoing Bernice's words back to the empty room. Maybe someday you'll earn the right to drive these cars. Not yet. The private school tuition was next. $2,200 split between 2 kids, withdrawn quarterly, but averaged into my mental monthly calculation. That one required logging into a separate education and payment portal. More clicks, more confirmation dialogues asking if I was certain. I was certain. Homeowners insurance, utilities, the premium cable package that costs more than my own. Each cancellation took between 2 and 4 minutes. Login credentials, security, questions, navigation through menus designed to make cancelling difficult. I worked through them with the patience of someone who'd spent 40 years in financial consulting. Someone who understood that thorough work took time. Somewhere during the utility cancellation, my phone began vibrating. Leo's name flashed across the screen, his photo taken 3 Thanksgivings ago, when he was still smiling at me, appearing with the incoming call notification. I glanced at it, reached over without looking directly at the screen, flipped the phone face down. The vibration continued for 30 seconds, then stopped. The silence lasted maybe 2 minutes before it started again. Same name, same photo. I kept my eyes on the laptop screen, clicking through to cancel the cable package. By the time I finished with Bernice's credit card, the last item on my list, the one that had been quietly accumulating her business expenses at an average of $900 monthly, my phone had gone through several cycles of vibrating, stopping, and starting again. I closed the laptop with a quiet click that seemed loud in the office silence. The time on my computer screen read 7:52 p.m. I'd been working for just over an hour. Outside the window, downtown Scottsdale had transformed into its evening personality. Restaurant patios filling up, strings of lights illuminating the sidewalks, people starting their holiday celebrations early. I gathered my things slowly, laptop into my messenger bag, phone picked up and slipped into my pocket, still face down, still vibrating intermittently, coat from the hook behind the door. I locked my office and walked to the elevator, rode it down to the parking garage, got into my car. The whole time, My phone kept buzzing against my thigh like an angry insect trapped in fabric. The drive to my apartment took 20 minutes through moderate traffic. I lived in a newer complex near Old Town, a 2-bedroom unit that had felt too large when I first moved in after selling the family house, but now felt exactly right for one person who didn't need to accommodate anyone else's expectations. Inside, I set my bag on the entry table and finally pulled out my phone. The lock screen was a mess of notifications, 95 missed calls. The message app badge showed 43 unread texts. I scrolled through the call log. Leo, 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 Bernice, Leo, Bernice, Bernice. Unknown number, probably Celeste, alerted to the crisis and trying to mediate. Leo, Leo, Leo. I powered off the ringer completely, disabled the vibration, set the phone face up on my desk, where I could watch the screen light up silently with each new attempt. In the kitchen, I pulled down a bottle of bourbon from the cabinet, a bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion that had never materialized. Crystal glass from the set I never used, because there was no one to use it with. 2 fingers of amber liquid catching the light from above the sink. I carried the glass to my living room window, left the apartment lights off. The city spread out before me in layers of illumination. Streetlights, building windows, the red and white streams of traffic on Scottsdale Road. My phone screen glowed on the desk behind me. Another silent call coming through. I didn't turn around. The bourbon was smooth, expensive. I took a slow sip and let it warm its way down. My voice came out quiet in the darkness. 8 years of trying to make up for her being gone. They never appreciated a single day. The phone screen went dark, stayed dark for maybe 90 seconds, then lit up again. Another call, another attempt to reach the man who just cut off their funding. I imagine Leo's panic as he checked his bank notifications, saw the cancelled payments, understood what it meant. I imagined Bernice's fury, her calculations about bills coming due, her realization that her condescension had cost her more than she'd anticipated. I took another sip, watched the city. Behind me, my phone continued its silent, futile flashing. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. I'd spend it however I wanted. Maybe I'd cook something simple, or maybe I'd go out, find a restaurant serving dinner, sit at a table with strangers who owed me nothing and expected nothing in return. The bourbon glass was half empty now, or half full, depending on perspective. I suppose that was the difference. I was finally looking at things from a different angle, not through the lens of guilt or obligation or desperate attempts to compensate for the past, just seeing what was actually there. The phone lit up again behind me. I didn't turn around. The city lights were much more interesting. I woke Thursday morning to silence. No buzzing phone, no emergency knocks, no crisis demanding my immediate attention. Just the pale November sunlight filtering through my bedroom blinds and the distant hum of Scottsdale Road traffic. Most of the city was preparing Thanksgiving dinners. I made coffee. My dining table became a workspace. Laptop open, legal pad to the right, pen positioned parallel to the pad's edge. Habits from 40 years of client meetings. I pulled up the folder on my computer labeled Property Documents and started clicking through files I hadn't reviewed in years. The North Scottsdale House Purchase Agreement opened first. I scrolled to the ownership section, highlighted the relevant passage with my cursor. Sole owner DIL, Marcus Willis. No cosigner listed. No rental agreement attached. I'd bought it 6 years ago as what I'd called an investment property, a place where Leo and Bernice could get established while I covered expenses. The word temporary had been used frequently in those early conversations. Temporary had somehow become permanent. I took notes in my legal pad, my handwriting precise, despite the slight tremor in my fingers that had developed over the past year. Property purchased January 2018. Total price $485,000. Mortgage paid in full. 2021. Title, my name only. The vehicle leases came next. Both contracts opened in separate windows on my screen. Toyota Highlander for Bernice, lease March 2022. Lexus ES354, Leo, leased August 2023. I read the fine print I'd barely glanced at when signing. Primary leaseholder, DIL M. Willis. Authorized driver, Leo Clayton Willis. The second vehicle didn't even list Bernice. She'd been driving it on Leo's authorization alone. I muttered to the empty apartment. Sole owner, no cosigner, no rental agreement. It's cleaner than I remembered. My coffee had gone cold. I didn't bother reheating it. Friday afternoon, I sat in the same chair, laptop open to a different kind of research. Property attorneys in Scottsdale. I read reviews, checked credentials, cross-referenced bar association listings. No personal connections. I wanted someone who'd never met my family, someone who'd see this as pure business. Oscar Chen's name appeared on 3 separate recommendation lists. Property disputes, contract law, 15 years of practice. His office was in Old Town, walking distance from the weekend art galleries Judith used to drag me to before she got sick. I filled out his online consultation form, selected the first available appointment, Monday, December 2nd, 10 o'clock. Click submit. The confirmation email arrived 30 seconds later. Saturday morning, I was in my bedroom reading when my phone pinged with a doorbell camera alert. I opened the app and watched Leo and Bernice materialize on my screen, standing in the hallway outside my door. Leo raised his hand to knock, the gesture tentative, almost apologetic. Bernice stood behind him with her arms crossed, her mouth moving in what looked like instructions. I turned up the audio. Leo's knuckles made contact with the door. 3 soft raps. Nothing that would disturb the neighbors. Bernice's voice came through tiny but clear, harder. He's probably just ignoring us. Leo tried again, marginally louder. I watched from my armchair, phone screen balanced on my knee, as my son performed this pantomime of reconciliation. Bernice stepped forward, her face contorting with frustration. "Dwight, open this door. You can't just abandon your family like this." Her fist hit the door with real force. Leo's shoulders hunched. He reached out, touched her arm. "Maybe we should just go." She shook him off, pounded again, shouted my name 3 more times, each repetition sharper than the last. I watched her face flush red on the grainy camera feed, watched Leo glance nervously toward the elevator, watched them stand there for nearly 10 minutes before Bernice finally grabbed Leo's elbow and yanked him toward the hallway. They disappeared from frame. I heard the elevator chime through my walls, set my phone down, returned to my book. Sunday evening, I was at my dining table sorting documents into folders when Celeste called. I stared at her name on the screen for several rings before answering. "Dwight, please." "They're desperate." Her voice trembled. Genuine distress rather than manipulation, at least initially. "The children need their grandfather. Don't destroy this family over one mistake." I kept my tone measured. "I'm not destroying anything, Celeste. I'm simply choosing not to fund people who treat me with contempt." But they apologized. "No," Bernice told me I hadn't earned the right to sit at a table with my own family. Leo agreed by his silence. "That's not a mistake. That's a statement of how they see me." She shifted tactics. I could hear it in her breath, the slight pause before the next sentence. "How can you be so cruel? Your wife would be ashamed of you right now." Something cold settled in my chest. My wife would want me to maintain my dignity. "Goodbye, Celeste." I ended the call, set the phone face up on the table, and watched it light up twice more with her attempts to call back. Didn't answer. The apartment felt especially quiet after that. I organized the last folder, snapped it shut, stacked it with the others, stood at my window, and looked out at the Sunday evening traffic. The restaurants with their patio heaters glowing orange, couples walking dogs, the ordinary rhythms of people who weren't spending their holiday weekend cataloging the ways their family had failed them. I spoke to the empty room. Everyone thinks money equals love. Nobody asks what love without respect is worth. My reflection in the window glass looked older than 62, tired, but not defeated. There was a difference between exhaustion and surrender, and I'd spent too many years confusing the two. Monday morning would come. The attorney would review my documents, and we'd begin the actual work of dismantling what I'd built. The notification light on my phone blinked steadily. More messages I wouldn't read tonight. Outside, the city continued its weekend wind down, oblivious to the small domestic war being waged in voicemails and doorbell camera footage. I left the window, made a simple dinner, ate at the table where my laptop and legal pad waited for tomorrow's next phase. The silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was clarifying. Monday morning arrived with the kind of clarity that comes after a decision becomes irreversible. I showered, dressed in charcoal slacks and a pressed button, business casual. The uniform of a man who still went to an office every day and understood the difference between casual and careless. Gathered my documents into the leather portfolio I'd received as a retirement gift from my first firm, back when retirement felt like something that happened to other people. I drove from my apartment to Old Town Scottsdale, parking in the public lot near the art galleries. Walked 3 blocks through cool December air to Oscar Chen's office building, a modest 2-story adobe structure with desert landscaping that somehow managed to look both professional and unassuming. Pushed through the glass door at exactly 10 o'clock. The receptionist directed me to a conference room where Oscar waited. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with black-framed glasses and a firm handshake that spoke of confidence rather than aggression. "Mr. Willis, please have a seat." I took the chair across from his desk, set my portfolio on my lap, unzipped it with deliberate calm. Oscar settled into his own chair, legal pad positioned in front of him, pen already "I've reviewed the basic facts from your consultation form," he said, "but I'd like to see the actual documents. Let's start with the house deed." I extracted it from the portfolio, slid it across the desk. He examined it with the kind of focus I recognized from my own work. Someone who knew what details mattered, made a few notes, looked up. "The vehicle leases, please." I handed those over. He spread everything across his desk like a poker hand. Documents fanned out where he could see them all simultaneously. Spent nearly 20 minutes reading, cross-referencing, occasionally glancing at the bank statements I'd included, showing 8 years of payment history. When he finally leaned back in his chair, his expression hadn't changed. Professional neutrality, the kind that makes good attorneys valuable. "Mr. Willis, legally speaking, your position couldn't be stronger. They have no written lease, no proof of payment, no claim to the property. Arizona law is very clear on this." I kept my voice level. "How long will the eviction process take?" 30 to 60 days if they cooperate. If they fight it, maybe 90. But they won't win. They'll just delay. "And the vehicles, you can terminate those leases tomorrow if you want. They're in your name. The leasing company will retrieve them." He outlined his strategy with the same methodical precision I had used reviewing my own documents. We'd send a formal eviction notice first. 30 days to vacate. Document everything they did in response. Every call, every text, every appearance at my door. If they claimed I'd verbally agreed to let them stay indefinitely, we'd have a paper trail proving otherwise. "When can you send the notice?" I asked. "I can have it drafted by Wednesday. Courier delivery to their address Thursday at the latest." He quoted his retainer, $5,000. I didn't hesitate. Pulled my checkbook from the portfolio's inner pocket, wrote the check with practice strokes. 40 years of signing checks had made the motion automatic. Tore it free, slid it across the desk. Oscar examined it briefly, then extended his hand again. "I'll be in touch by Wednesday with the draft for your review." I shook his hand, gathered my documents, left his office feeling like I had just completed any other professional transaction, which was exactly what this was. Back at my apartment that evening, I returned to my normal routine. Dinner, news, the stack of client files I'd brought home for review. Around 9 o'clock, I opened my laptop to check email and saw Leo's name in my inbox. Subject line, "Dad, please." I opened it. Read 3 paragraphs of apology mixed with excuses. Bernice had pushed too hard. He should have stopped her. He never wanted to hurt me. Could we please just sit down and talk? He knew he'd messed up. I read it twice, considered the careful phrasing, the way it positioned Leo as victim of Bernice's influence rather than willing participant in my exclusion. The plea for conversation that carefully avoided any actual acknowledgement of years of taking without gratitude. I muttered to my screen, 8 years too late for that conversation. Moved my cursor to the archive button, clicked once. The email vanished from my inbox. Wednesday passed quietly. Thursday afternoon, I was at my office reviewing a portfolio allocation when my desk phone buzzed. Building security. "Mr. Willis, there's a man in the lobby claiming to be your son, requesting to see you. He's becoming disruptive." I glanced at my computer monitor, switched to the building's security camera interface, a feature available to senior staff for exactly these situations. Selected the lobby camera. Leo appeared on screen, pacing near the elevator bank. His gestures were sharp, agitated. The security guard stood between him and the elevators, professional but firm. "Should we call the police?" the guard asked through the phone. I watched Leo throw his hands up, watched his mouth move in what looked like shouting, watched him point at the elevators, at the guard, back at the elevators. The desperation was visible even through the grainy camera feed. "No," I said, "just escort him out. Don't let him come back." I stayed on the security feed after hanging up, watched the guards approach Leo, watched him argue, his shoulders hunching the same way they had outside my apartment door. Watched him finally turned toward the exit, flanked by security, his whole body radiating defeated fury. The lobby returned to its normal rhythm, people entering, leaving, crossing toward the elevators, banks without drama. I switched back to my portfolio allocation spreadsheet, spoke quietly to my empty office. You wanted to exclude me from the table. Leo, welcome to the same feeling. My phone showed no new messages. The workday continued its ordinary progression. Outside my window, downtown Scottsdale moved through its Thursday afternoon patterns, lunch crowds dispersing, afternoon meetings beginning, the city indifferent to small family catastrophes. I returned my attention to the numbers on my screen. Asset allocation, risk assessment, the comfortable language of a profession that made sense, where value could be calculated and consequences predicted, not like family, where 8 years of payments and presents somehow earned you nothing but contempt and a Thanksgiving exclusion. The office was quiet, professional, mine. I closed the portfolio file, opened the next one. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I was at my desk reviewing a client's portfolio, rebalancing when my phone chimed. Text from Oscar Chen, notice delivered, signed for at 10:47 a.m. 30-day, clock starts today. I read it twice, saved a screenshot to the folder ID created specifically for this process, legal documentation, December 2024, then returned to the spreadsheet on my screen. The portfolio needed attention. Mrs. Henderson was 73 and risk-averse. Her allocation had drifted too heavily into equities. I made notes about shifting 15% into municipal bonds. My office phone rang 40 minutes later. Leo's number on the caller ID. I picked up expecting his voice. Instead, Bernice exploded through the speaker. You can't do this. This is illegal. We have rights. You're a cruel old man and we'll sue you for everything. Her words tumbled over each other, fury and panic mixing into something shrill. I held the phone slightly away from my ear, waiting for her to pause for breath. When she finally did, I spoke calmly. Everything is legal. Talk to your attorney. Pressed the red button. The line went dead. Opened my contacts. Found her number. Selected block. A small dialogue appeared asking if I was sure. I confirmed. Her number vanished from my available contacts. The rest of Monday passed without incident. Client calls, portfolio reviews, a lunch meeting with a prospective client who was consolidating his retirement accounts. Normal work, the kind that had sustained me for 4 decades. Numbers made sense. Risk could be calculated. Consequences followed predictable patterns. Tuesday and Wednesday continued the same way. I didn't hear from Leo or Bernice. Presumably, they were consulting their own attorney, discovering what Oscar had already told me. Fighting this would be expensive and futile. Thursday afternoon, I was home reading when my doorbell rang. Not the camera alert that came when someone approached the building entrance. The actual doorbell at my apartment door. I checked the camera feed on my phone. Celeste stood in the hallway alone. She looked tired, sad, her hand raised to ring again. I debated leaving her there, letting the camera record another failed attempt at contact, another piece of documentation for the file Oscar was building. But this was Celeste, Judith's mother, a woman who'd held my hand at my wife's funeral and told me I'd been a good husband, even when I knew I hadn't been good enough. I unlocked the door, opened it. Hello, Celeste. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Can I come in, please? I stepped aside. She entered and I gestured toward the couch, took the armchair across from her. The coffee table between us, like a negotiation barrier, kept the distance deliberate. She sat with her purse clutched in her lap, hands working at the leather strap. Do it, please. The children, Mia and Jake, they'll lose their home right before the holidays. Leo made a mistake. Yes, but families forgive. Don't you remember how much your wife valued family? I let her talk, listened as she cycled through every argument I'd expected. The grandchildren would suffer. Leo was sorry. Everyone makes mistakes. Family was supposed to be forever. Nearly 2 hours she sat there, her hands twisting a tissue into shreds, her voice alternating between pleading and reasoning. I remained in the armchair, hands resting on the arms, posture upright but not rigid, attentive, unmoved. Finally, she shifted to her last weapon. The one I'd known was coming. Your wife would be heartbroken seeing this. She would want you to be the bigger person, to forgive. I leaned forward, spoke with quiet intensity. My wife would want me to maintain my dignity. Celeste, She wouldn't want me to be an ATM. That's not what love looks like. But Leo didn't make a mistake. He showed me exactly what I mean to him. A source of money, not a father. There's a difference between family and people who exploit you. She stood unsteady. Her face was wet. I can't believe you're doing this. I walked her to the door, didn't offer a hug or any physical comfort, opened the door, nodded once. She stepped into the hallway, and I closed the door gently behind her. The apartment settled back into silence. I returned to my chair, picked up my book, tried to find the page I'd been on before the doorbell rang. The words didn't make sense at first. My eyes tracked across sentences without absorbing meaning. I set the book down, looked at the closed door, spoke to the empty apartment. Everyone confuses enabling with loving. I'm done with that confusion. The afternoon light was fading outside my windows. Traffic sounds drifted up from Scottsdale Road. Someone's television played faintly through the walls. A commercial for holiday sales. Cheerful voices promising perfect gifts. I thought about Celeste's face as she left. The genuine pain there. She believed she was helping. Believed she was defending family values. But family values without mutual respect weren't values at all. They were just chains disguised as connection. My phone sat on the side table, dark and silent. No new messages. Leo and Bernice had apparently learned that Celeste's mission had failed. Or maybe they were waiting to see if she'd planted seeds of doubt that would bloom into capitulation. They'd be waiting a long time. I picked up my book again, found my place. The words made sense this time. The story continued its forward motion. Characters making choices and facing consequences, the narrative arc bending toward resolution. Outside, the December evening deepened into night. The city lights came on one by one, mapping the familiar geography of my adopted home. Scottsdale in winter, cool, clear, beautiful in its desert way. I'd chosen to live here after Judith died. Sold the family house in Tempe where we'd raised Leo, where every room held memories of her illness and my failures to be present enough, attentive enough, the husband she deserved. Started over in this apartment with its clean lines and its lack of history. Maybe that's what I was doing now, too. Starting over, choosing a life without the weight of expectations I'd never be able to meet. No matter how many checks I wrote, the book's protagonist was making a difficult choice on the page in front of me. Walking away from something comfortable but toxic. I understood that character better now than I had this morning. Wednesday evening, December 18th. I was wrapping up a late meeting when my phone started buzzing repeatedly. I ignored it. The client needed my attention more than whatever messages were arriving. But after the third notification in as many minutes, I glanced down. 3 texts, all from colleagues. Variations on the same theme. Did you see what's being said about you online? The meeting ended at 6. I thanked Mr. Patterson, walked him to the elevator, returned to my office, and finally checked my phone properly. For more messages had arrived. 2 from acquaintances at the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce, 1 from Martin next door, 1 from a former client, all asking the same question. I opened Facebook, which I'd last checked sometime in September, navigated to Bernice's profile. It was public, which made finding the post easy. Posted at 3 that afternoon. My father-in-law is evicting us, his own son, daughter-in-law, and 2 young grandchildren with 30 days' notice right before Christmas. We have nowhere to go. I never thought family could be this cruel. Please pray for us. 47 comments, 23 shares. I scrolled through the responses, variations on outrage and sympathy. Oh my God, that's terrible. What kind of person does this? Those poor babies. I closed the app, sat in my office chair, looking at the phone's dark screen. This was the strategy shift Oscar had warned me about. When legal options fail, people turn to public opinion. Court of social media instead of court of law. I opened my photo gallery, found the screenshots I'd saved back in November, the family chat messages, Leo's exclusion, Bernice's condescending words about me, earning the right to sit at their table, composed individual text messages to 2 colleagues I'd known for 20 years, attached the screenshots, kept my message brief. This is what prompted my decision. I won't engage publicly, but you've known me 20 years. You can judge for yourself who's being unreasonable here. Sent both, closed my phone, gathered my things, and went home. I didn't respond to the other messages, didn't post anything public, didn't dignify Bernice's performance with a rebuttal. The people who knew me would make their own judgments. The people who didn't know me could believe whatever narrative was most emotionally satisfying. The rest of the week passed quietly. Work, home, the usual routines. My phone eventually stopped buzzing with concern messages as the social media storm moved on to fresher drama. Sunday morning, December 22nd, I was reading in my armchair when the doorbell camera alerted me. Not my apartment door, the building entrance. I opened the app. Leo, Bernice, and Celeste stood on the sidewalk outside, not approaching the door. Just standing there, positioned where anyone entering or leaving the building would see them. Bernice held me his hand. Leo had Jake on his shoulders. I sat down my book, made a cup of coffee, settled back into my chair, and checked the camera periodically. They stayed for an hour, a carefully orchestrated family gathering that just happened to occur outside my building on a Sunday morning when residents would be coming and going, when someone would surely mention it to me, when I might feel compelled to come down and engage. I spoke to my empty apartment. Stage a chance meeting. I've been managing investment portfolios for 30 years. I know a setup when I see one. They gave up around 11:30. I watched them walk to their car. Leo's shoulders slumped, Bernice's gestures sharp and accusatory, Celeste trailing behind, looking defeated. Christmas arrived on Wednesday. I'd made a reservation at The Mission, an upscale restaurant in Old Town that stayed open for the holiday. Dressed in casual blazer and dark slacks, drove there at 6 o'clock in the evening and handed my car to the valet with a generous holiday tip. The restaurant was half full. Couples, families, a few other solo diners scattered throughout. I requested a table near the window, ordered the prefix menu, and pulled out the book I'd brought. 2 hours I spent there, reading between courses, watching the sunset paint the McDowell Mountains in shades of copper and purple, listening to other tables' conversations, the comfortable murmur of people who belonged to each other. No one bothered me. The server was professional and unobtrusive. The food was excellent. The wine complemented each course perfectly. I paid the check, wished the staff happy holidays, and drove home through empty streets. Most of Scottsdale was inside with family. The city felt peaceful, clean, mine. Back at my apartment, I changed into comfortable clothes and settled on the couch with a documentary about the Apollo program. Something about men who'd left Earth behind, traveled to the moon, returned, changed. My phone chimed around 10 o'clock. Message notification. I picked it up, expecting a holiday greeting from a colleague. Instead, a photo from Bernice's number. Mia and Jake sat on a couch, both looking sad. Artificial sadness, the kind children perform when adults ask them to look upset for a picture, but sad nonetheless. The caption beneath, they're asking why Grandpa doesn't love them anymore. My chest tightened. The first real pain I'd felt since Thanksgiving, not for Leo or Bernice. For those two children who were being used as weapons in an adult war they couldn't understand. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could type something, could try to explain, could tell them this wasn't about them, wasn't about love, was about boundaries and respect and consequences for cruelty. But explaining to Mia and Jake meant engaging with Bernice, meant opening a door I deliberately closed, meant giving her what she wanted, proof that she could still reach me, still manipulate me through guilt and grandchildren. I stared at the photo for a long moment, then deliberately locked my phone screen, placed it face down on the coffee table, spoke quietly to the empty room. I'm sorry, Mia. I'm sorry, Jake. But this isn't about you. The documentary continued on my television. Engineers solving impossible problems, astronauts learning to walk on a surface where no human had walked before, men making difficult choices in situations without precedent. The phone stayed face down, silent. Outside, Christmas night settled over. Families were opening presents, eating leftovers, arguing about whose turn it was to load the dishwasher. Normal domestic rhythms in normal domestic spaces. I'd chosen something different, chosen boundaries over belonging, dignity over dysfunction, but choosing didn't make it painless. The documentary ended. I turned off the television, sat in the dark apartment, watching the city lights through my window. The same view I'd watched the night I cancelled all the payments. The same moment of recognizing what I'd become. Convenient, expendable, valued only for what I provided. The phone remained face down. The photo remained unanswered. Tomorrow would be December 26th, 15 days until the eviction deadline. 2 weeks for Leo and Bernice to find somewhere else to live. Pack their belongings, transition their children to a new reality. Part of me wondered if they were actually looking for housing. or if they were still banking on breaking my resolve, still believing that eventually the right manipulation would work, the right emotional leverage would make me cave. They didn't understand what they'd done on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, didn't comprehend that the cruelty hadn't been the rejection itself, it had been the casual nature of it, the assumption that I was so thoroughly beneath them that they didn't even need to be diplomatic about excluding me. That kind of contempt couldn't be undone with apologies or grandchildren's photos or social media campaigns. I picked up the phone one more time, looked at the photo again. Mia was 8, Jake was 6, old enough to remember their grandfather, young enough that they'd adjust to his absence. Children were resilient, adults pretended they weren't, used them as shields and weapons, but children adapted. I locked the screen again, left the phone on the coffee table, went to bed. The morning after Christmas, I sat at my dining table with coffee cooling beside my laptop. The photo of Mia and Jake was still on my phone, but I hadn't looked at it again. Manipulation was manipulation, regardless of how many 8-year-olds got recruited. I opened the folder where I'd saved the vehicle lease agreements, pulled up both contracts, Toyota Highlander, Lexus, Ease. Read the termination clauses I'd highlighted back in December. Primary leaseholder could cancel with 7 days written notice, vehicles to be returned or subject to repossession and penalties. Composed 2 emails, one to Toyota Financial Services, one to Lexus Financial Services, both nearly identical. Formal termination of lease agreement effective immediately per contract section 12.4. Attach my identification, attached account verification. Click send on the first, click send on the second. The confirmations arrived within 30 seconds. I forwarded both to Oscar with a brief note. Phase 2 initiated. Vehicles will be retrieved by January 3rd per contract terms. The rest of the week passed in that strange dead zone between Christmas and New Year's. The office was mostly empty. I reviewed portfolios, rebalanced allocations, prepared for the January rush when clients would want to discuss tax strategies. Friday morning, January 3rd, I was at my desk when my phone buzzed. Motion detected at the North Scottsdale property. I'd installed security cameras there back in November when I first realized I might need documentation. Owner's right to monitor his investment. I opened the app, watched the live feed as a flatbed tow truck backed into the driveway. The front door burst open. Bernice appeared in her bathrobe, her mouth already moving, hands gesticulating wildly. I turned up the volume. Can't do this. That's my car. I need it. You can't just take it. The driver climbed down from the cab, stocky guy in coveralls, clipboard in hand. He walked toward her with the patience of someone who'd done this many times. Ma'am, I have authorization from the leaseholder to retrieve this vehicle. The lease was terminated. You need to remove any personal belongings now. She positioned herself in front of the Toyota, actually put her body between the truck and the vehicle, as if that would stop anything. I have children. How am I supposed to take them to school? The driver showed her the paperwork, pointed at specific lines. Even from the camera angle, I could see her face cycling through emotions. Disbelief, rage, desperation. She pulled her phone from her bathrobe pocket, started dialing. Probably Leo, probably me, didn't matter. The driver gave her 5 minutes to remove personal items from the car, watched as she yanked open doors and pulled out random objects, a sweater, some toys, a reusable shopping bag. Then he winched the Highlander onto the flatbed and drove away. Bernice stood in the driveway holding her pile of belongings, watching the truck disappear down the street. Saturday, Leo's Lexus went the same way. I watched that one, too. Different driver, same professional patience. Leo tried standing in front of the car with his arms spread wide, talking rapidly. The driver made a phone call, probably to the leasing company, maybe to the police. Leo's shoulders slumped. He stepped aside. The Lexus disappeared onto another flatbed. My phone started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Bernice must have been borrowing phones now that hers was blocked. I read them without responding. Variations on desperation and fury, then added each new number to my block list. The week between the vehicle repossessions and the eviction deadline felt longer than it probably was. I went to work, came home, checked the security cameras occasionally, and saw Leo and Bernice loading boxes into a U-Haul truck they had rented. Thursday evening, January 9th, I sat in my darkened apartment with just my laptop screen providing light, pulled up the security feed, and watched. Leo and Bernice made trip after trip. Boxes, furniture, lamps, everything they'd accumulated during 6 years of rent-free living. Their movements were mechanical, exhausted. They didn't appear to speak to each other. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, the U-Haul finally pulled away from the curb. Leo driving, Bernice in the passenger seat, both of them staring straight ahead through the windshield. The house sat empty under the streetlights. I closed the laptop, sat in the darkness for a while, felt relief, not triumph. This wasn't victory. It was just the end of an unsustainable situation, like finally selling a bad investment. You didn't celebrate. You just stopped losing money. Friday morning, I drove to the North Scottsdale house, used my key to unlock the front door. The sound echoed in the empty space. Walked through each room slowly, my footsteps too loud on the hardwood floors. The house smelled like cleaning products and abandonment. They'd tried to make it presentable, probably hoping I wouldn't pursue them for damages. In the hallway, I found scratches on the wall. Looked like furniture had scraped it during move-out. In the living room, a dark stain on the carpet near where their couch had been. Coffee or wine, probably set in too deep to clean. I photographed both, not because I planned to do anything about it, just documentation, proof of what had been left behind. My phone buzzed. Text from Oscar. Everything goes smoothly with the move out. I typed back. House inspection complete. Minor damage noted. What's the next step? His response came quickly. Document everything, but don't pursue financial claims. It'll look petty and vindictive. You've made your point. Let them go. I read it twice. He was right. Chasing them for a carpet stain and wall scratches would undermine everything. Make it look personal instead of principled. Understood. Moving forward with next steps, I took one more walk through the empty house. Looked out the back windows at the small yard they'd never maintained. Checked the garage where Leo's Lexus used to sit. Everything was hollow, clean, ready for the next chapter. Locked the front door behind me. Stood on the driveway for a moment, keys in hand. 6 years they had lived here, never paid rent, never maintained the property, never acknowledged the gift they had been given. I got in my car and drove back to my apartment. The house would stay empty for now. Oscar had advised waiting a few weeks before listing it, letting things settle. But eventually, I'd sell it, close that chapter completely, make sure Leo and Bernice understood there was no going back. The January sun was bright and cold. Traffic was light on the drive home. I passed people walking dogs, jogging, living their normal Friday lives. Mine was normal too, now, or would be once I finished what I'd started. I parked in my building's garage, rode the elevator up, unlocked my apartment door, and stepped into the quiet space that was mine and no one else's. No one expecting money, no one sending manipulative texts, no one using children as weapons, just silence, clean and uncomplicated. I made lunch, returned some work emails, spent the afternoon organizing tax documents for my accountant. Normal life, the kind I'd been funding for others while neglecting my own. Not anymore. A week after the move out, I was at my desk reviewing my monthly budget when something caught my attention. The automatic withdrawal section was nearly empty. Mortgage payment cancelled. Car leases terminated. Insurance premiums gone. Tuition eliminated. I opened a spreadsheet, ran the numbers. $8,550 monthly. Now staying in my accounts, I updated my retirement projections. Watched the compound interest calculations adjust upward, satisfying in a purely mathematical way. The third week of January, my phone rang. Leo's number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Bernice's voice exploded through the speaker before I could say hello. Dit, please, I'm begging you. Forget about everything else. Just pay for the children's school. Mia and Jake didn't do anything wrong. They need their education. We can't afford Tesseract without you. I let her finish. Her voice accelerated with panic, words tumbling together. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. You told me I don't deserve to sit at your table. Why should I pay for their education? Press the red button. The silence afterward felt appropriate. That evening, my credit monitoring app sent an alert. Leo's name appeared in the notification. We'd been connected years ago when I'd added him as an authorized user on one of my cards. A connection that still showed linked accounts. His credit score had dropped 118 points. Collections activity detected. I viewed the details without emotion, closed the app, returned to the book I was reading. Financial consequences were playing out exactly as they inevitably would. When you live beyond your means and your support system disappears, the math becomes unforgiving. Early February, a thick envelope arrived in my mail. The address was written in careful childish letters. Crayon drawings decorated the edges. Flowers and hearts and stick figures. I opened it, standing by my dining table, pulled out lined paper with neat handwriting. Dear Grandpa, please forgive Mummy and Daddy. We miss you. Love, Mia and Jake. Held it up to the light. The letters were too uniform, too perfect for an H. The spacing too deliberate. The phrasing, forgive Mummy and Daddy, distinctly adult. I placed it in the folder labeled documentation, not the trash. Evidence that the manipulation continued, that Bernice was still weaponizing children rather than accepting responsibility. Spoke quietly to the empty apartment, using 80 rolls as weapons. The handwriting's not even close. Did she really think I wouldn't notice? Then, I'm sorry you're caught in this, MIA, but your parents need to learn. Mid-February, I scheduled an appointment with a realtor. Patricia Morgan had good reviews, specialized in North Scottsdale properties. We met at her office in Old. She reviewed the house details on her computer. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage, prime location, well maintained. This is a beautiful property, Mr. Willis. Prime location, excellent condition. We should have no trouble at this price point. May I ask, will the proceeds go toward another property? I kept my answer simple. No, I'm simplifying my portfolio. This was an investment that didn't work out. She nodded. Understood. Investment properties sometimes didn't perform as expected. Didn't need to know the investment had been family, not real estate returns. I signed the listing agreement, $675,000, slightly above market, but the house justified it. Patricia said she'd have the sign posted within days, photos on the MLS by the weekend. Before heading home, I called Oscar. You sure about selling? He asked. Once it's sold, there's no walking this back. I'm sure. They need to understand this door is permanently closed. No reconciliation, no second chances. It's over. He was quiet for a moment. Then, all right, you've been consistent from the start. I respect that. After the call, I drove past the North Scottsdale house one final time, slowed as I approached. The for sale sign wasn't posted yet, but would be soon. Patricia had promised by Monday. The house looked empty, abandoned. Even from the street, you could tell no one lived there anymore. Lawns needed mowing. Blinds were open to vacant rooms. The driveway where 2 vehicles used to sit was bare concrete. I didn't stop, just slowed, noted the details, continued driving. That evening, I sat in my apartment with the windows open. Despite February's chill, the city sounds drifted up. Traffic, distant conversations, someone's music playing. Normal urban life. My phone sat on the coffee table, dark and silent. No desperate calls, no manipulative texts, no photos of sad grandchildren. Either Bernice had run out of strategies, or she'd finally accepted that nothing was going to work. The math of their situation was brutal and simple. Leo made $75,000 annually after taxes, about $4,700 monthly. Their rent in Mesa was $1,600 AD. Utilities, food, gas, for Leo's commute, basic insurance, phones, $3,500 in fixed expenses minimum, left $1,200 monthly for everything else. No private school, no luxury cars, no lifestyle they had grown accustomed to. And now collection agencies were calling about their credit card debt. $8,500 they couldn't pay. Their credit scores were tanking. Future loans would cost more. Future rentals would require higher deposits. The cascade of consequences had its own momentum now. I wasn't pushing anything, just watching gravity do its work on a structure I'd stopped propping up. I thought about Mia and Jake, hoped they were resilient, hoped Mesa Elementary was treating them well, hoped they'd eventually understand their parents' choices had created this situation, not their grandfather's boundaries. But that was years away. For now, they were confused children wondering why everything had changed. That part wasn't satisfying. Never would be. Children were casualties of adult dysfunction. Always had been. I'd been trying to prevent that by funding their lifestyle. But all I'd done was delay the inevitable, while enabling their parents' irresponsibility. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do was stop being kind in ways that fostered dependence. Outside, the city continued its evening rhythms. Restaurants filling up, couples walking to dinner, the ordinary movements of people living within their means, maintaining their dignity, not exploiting family members. I closed the windows, the apartment became quiet again. My retirement account balance was healthier than it had been in years, my stress level lower, my sense of self-respect restored. Small prices, alienation from a son who'd shown his true character, distance from grandchildren being used as pawns, judgment from people who didn't know the full story. But I'd paid larger prices before, paid them monthly for 8 years, paid them in dignity and self-respect, and the slow erosion of knowing I was being used. This price, loneliness, judgment, finality, was at least honest. I made dinner, watched the news, prepared for tomorrow's client meetings. The house would sell, the final thread would be cut, and I'd continue the life I'd reclaimed, quieter, smaller, but mine. Late February, I was reviewing quarterly client portfolios when my desk phone buzzed. Building security. Mr. Willis, your son is in the lobby again, demanding to see you. Should we call the police this time? I switched my monitor to the security camera feed. Leo paced near the elevators, gesticulating at the guard. His face was red, his shirt wrinkled. He looked like a man barely holding together. No, just have him escorted out. Document the incident. I watched him argue for another minute before security guided him toward the door. His shoulders were hunched, defeated. I felt pity, but it was distant, clinical, the way you might feel watching a stranger struggle with a problem they had created. That afternoon, an email arrived. Subject: "You're destroying us." I opened it, read Leo's accusations, how I was vindictive, how the grandchildren were suffering, how he'd tell everyone the truth about what kind of father you are. I archived it without responding. Let him tell whoever he wanted. The people who knew me would make their own judgments. March 1st I drove to the coffee shop where Celeste had asked to meet. She was already there, hands wrapped around a mug, eyes red from recent crying. "Please, Dit, for my daughter's sake, there has to be a way to fix this." I sat down, pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots folder I'd maintained since November, slid the device across the table. She read the Thanksgiving messages, Leo's exclusion, Bernice's words about me earning the right to sit at their table. I watched her face transform, pleading to shocked comprehension. 8 years, I said quietly, over $100,000 a year, and I wasn't even worth inviting to Thanksgiving. I scrolled to more evidence, bank statements showing the payments, lease agreements in my name, the house deed, each document laid out with the precision of a financial presentation. Celeste began crying into her hands. "I didn't know. Leo told me you just cut them off for no reason. That Bernice was trying to help manage your finances and you got angry. This," she gestured at the phone, "this is completely different. They excluded you from Thanksgiving, then told me I needed to earn the right while I paid for everything." She wiped her eyes. My daughter would be so ashamed of how Leo turned out. She always worried he was too dependent on you, that you were too generous. She was right. I reached across and gently touched her wrist. "I don't blame you, Celeste. You didn't know, but I won't be manipulated anymore, even by people I love." Your daughter understood dignity. She would want me to maintain mine. She nodded, squeezed my hand. The alliance shifted in that moment, not against Leo, but toward truth. Mid-March, my phone rang. "Patricia Morgan, Mr. Willis, I have excellent news. We have an accepted offer at $670,000, all cash buyer, 30-day close." I thanked her, ended the call, sat in my office chair processing that the final physical tie had been severed. When the sale closed, I netted $460,000 after mortgage payoff and fees, met with my financial advisor, transferred it into municipal bonds and dividend stocks, conservative, stable, funding my retirement, not someone else's lifestyle. April brought Leo a court summons. The credit card company was suing for $11,200. The original debt plus interest and fees. The court-ordered wage got 25% of his paycheck. I learned this not from Leo, but from my credit monitoring app, which still showed connected accounts from years ago. Viewed the alert without emotion. The cascade of consequences had its own momentum. Now, early May, Detective Rodriguez from Scottsdale Police called. "Mr. Willis, we need to ask you some questions about a complaint filed by Bernice Willis regarding financial exploitation." I stayed calm. "I'll have my attorney contact you with all relevant documentation. This is a false claim." Forwarded everything to Oscar. Within 2 days, Rodriguez called back. "Mr. Willis, We've reviewed everything. No investigation needed. Sorry for the inconvenience. The false police report destroyed whatever sympathy remained for Leo and Bernice. Filing official complaints with demonstrable lies wasn't just desperate, it was destructive. People who'd been neutral now understood who was really in the wrong. Oscar called afterward. Filing a false police report was a massive mistake on their part. It's created a paper trail of their dishonesty. If they try anything else, we can pursue harassment charges. Let's just let it die. I said. They're destroying themselves without any help from me. July arrived hot and clear. The house was sold. The vehicles were gone. The automatic payments were ancient history. Leo and Bernice's relationship was reportedly collapsing under financial and emotional pressure. I didn't track the details anymore. Didn't need to. The mission was complete. Not revenge, just consequences delivered and boundaries maintained. I sat on my terrace one evening watching the sun set over the McDowell Mountains. My phone showed my investment balance. Healthy, growing, secure. My calendar showed client meetings and a dinner reservation at a restaurant I'd wanted to try. Normal life, mine, no one else's. The satisfaction wasn't triumph, wasn't glee, just peace in knowing I'd reclaimed something I'd given away too freely. My dignity, my autonomy, my right to be treated with basic respect. Justice, I'd learned, wasn't about punishment. It was about refusing to participate in your own exploitation. About drawing lines and maintaining them even when people cried or threatened or tried to use children as weapons. The sunset painted the sky in layers of orange and purple. Beautiful, indifferent. The mountains didn't care about family drama or financial consequences or revenge narratives. Neither did I anymore. Not really. The story was over. All that remained was living the life I'd won back. August 1st arrived with morning heat already building. I sat at my dining table with coffee, laptop open, scanning emails, quarterly reports, a meeting confirmation, spam about extended car warranties, then Leo's name in the inbox. Subject: I understand now. I almost deleted it unread. Almost, but my cursor hesitated. Clicked Dad. I understand now. We were wrong. I was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I don't blame you anymore. You did what you had to do. I'm trying to be better for Mia and Jake. No signature, no love, Leo, just those words. I read it twice. My cursor hovered over reply. Started typing I appreciate. Stopped. Deleted it. Started again with thank you for. Stopped again. Finally closed the email without responding. Saved it in a folder labeled archive, not trash. Acknowledgement received. Response unnecessary. 10 days later, Celeste called, asked if I'd like to meet for coffee at our regular spot. We had restored our relationship after the March revelation, meeting monthly now. Over lattes, she updated me. Leo's working himself to exhaustion. 2 jobs, the IT position during the day, Amazon warehouse evenings. Bernice filed for divorce, left for Texas to live with her mother. I set down my cup. How is he managing? Barely, but he's trying. The children visit me on weekends. He's drowning in debt, but won't ask you for anything. He asked me to tell you he's trying, not for forgiveness, just so you'd know. I pulled out my phone, found a photo from years ago. Leo as a teenager, smiling with his mother at his high school graduation. Showed it to Celeste. That's the son I remember. I hope he finds that person again. She nodded. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then I asked carefully, Celeste, I know Mia and Jake visit you on weekends. Would it be possible, not now, but sometime for me to see them at your place? Not as part of fixing things with Leo, just separately. She reached across and squeezed my hand. I think that would be good for everyone. Leo won't object. He knows he destroyed that relationship, and the children need good people in their lives. The following weekend, I drove to Celeste's Phoenix home, carried a bag with a board game I'd bought, ticket to ride, age appropriate and engaging. Mia and Jake were in the living room when I entered. They froze. That's great-grandma's friend, Celeste said gently, not forcing the grandfather label. Within an hour, we were sitting cross-legged on the floor. Some effort at 62, but worth it, playing the game. I handed Mia the dice, showed Jake how to count spaces, let the afternoon unfold naturally. Halfway through the game, Mia looked up. Great-grandma says you used to come to all our school plays. How come you stopped? I glanced at Celeste. She nodded slightly. Life got complicated, sweetheart, but I'm glad to be here now. Jake, focused on his game piece, asked, can you come next weekend? "We'll see, but I'd like that." The game continued. Laughter, simple conversation, no agenda beyond being present. When I left, Mia hugged me goodbye. Jake waved from behind Celeste's leg, still shy, but warming up. I drove home feeling something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not vindication, just peace. The last evening of August, I stood on my terrace with iced tea, watching the sun descend toward the mountains. My phone displayed my financial dashboard. Retirement accounts healthy, cash reserves strong, monthly budget clean and simple. 9 months since Thanksgiving. 9 months since that message telling me I hadn't earned the right to sit at their table. I thought briefly of Leo working warehouse shifts, of Mia and Jake in their smaller school. Felt neither guilt nor glee, just acceptance of consequences and boundaries maintained. Swiped to my photo gallery, found the picture from Celeste's house. Me and the children laughing over the board game. Allowed myself a small smile. I hadn't won my family back. That wasn't the goal anymore. But I'd won myself back. My dignity, my autonomy, my right to be treated with basic respect. The investment proceeds sat secure in conservative funds. No parasitic payments draining my accounts. No manipulation texts arriving at midnight. No photos of sad grandchildren designed to weaponize my love. Just my life. Clean, uncomplicated mine. The sky shifted through shades of amber and rose. The city below began its evening transformation. Lights coming on, traffic patterns changing, people heading home from work or out for dinner. I spoke quietly to the empty terrace. 9 months. It feels like longer. It feels like a different life. Then quieter. I don't need them to be sorry. I just needed them to stop taking, and they have. Leo was learning consequences. Working 2 jobs, managing debt, raising children largely alone. After Bernice abandoned ship, the same single parenthood I'd experienced after Judith died, though mine was through death, not choice. Maybe he'd emerge better. Maybe he'd find that teenager in the photo, the one who still had potential before entitlement and manipulation became his default modes. Or maybe he wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my responsibility anymore. I'd given him advantages, education, support, a rent-free home, vehicles, tuition for his children. He'd transformed them into expectations, entitlements, then wielded them as weapons when I didn't meet his standards. The sunset deepened, the mountains turned purple in the fading light. A hawk circled on thermal currents, riding the air with effortless grace. I'd spent 40 years building financial security. 8 of those years, I'd bled money into Leo and Bernice's lifestyle, while they treated me with contempt. Now that bleeding had stopped, the wound was healing. The scar tissue was stronger than the original skin. My phone buzzed. Celeste texting. The children asked when you're coming back. Next Saturday work for you. I typed back, I'll be there. Set the phone down. Watched the last sliver of sun disappear behind the mountains. The sky burned brilliant orange, then faded to deep blue. Justice wasn't revenge, wasn't punishment, wasn't even about being right. It was simply refusing to fund your own disrespect, drawing lines, maintaining them, living on your own terms, even when people you loved tried to dictate those terms through manipulation and guilt. I'd drawn those lines, maintained them, reclaimed my life. The terrace was cooling now, evening breeze carrying the scent of desert plants and distant mosquite. Inside my apartment waited, quiet, organized, peaceful. Tomorrow would bring client meetings, portfolio reviews, maybe lunch with a colleague. Normal life, the kind I'd been too busy enabling others to fully live. I finished my tea, picked up my phone. One last look at the photo of Mia and Jake, laughing over the board game. Then I turned and walked inside, closing the terrace door behind me. The sunset continued without me. Beautiful, indifferent, exactly as it should be. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.